Okay, we are live. We're ready to go. I'm here with my guest, Brandon. I'm going to have him kick it off, introduce himself, and then we'll get going. So the floor is yours, my friend.
What's going on? Brandon Zylstra from a small town called Spicer, Minnesota. Spent the last 7 years playing professional football, and now we're here on the podcast.
Beautiful. So I want to talk about your journey from college to the CFL to the NFL. I know before we started, you were saying you had a unique journey. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the journey, and then let's talk about what adjustments you had to make along the way to get to that top level of the NFL.
Yeah, so I decided, honestly, at a super young age that I was going to play in the NFL. I remember having the conversations with my brothers, having the conversation with my parents. Um, I think during graduation we were putting together, a little, essentially something to throw out there that it was work that I did when I was in kindergarten. You draw and write up about what you want to be when you're older. And I always drew myself, still have the thing for it. Me in a Vikings jersey. That was always the goal. It was always the dream for me. And didn't always tell other people. Because I knew how far-fetched it seemed, especially coming from the town that I came from. Population of what, 1,500 maybe. Just very small community, small town, big dreams. But I feel like I've always kind of had the support system and just the belief in myself, and I'm honestly just very stubborn and competitive, and so I think that definitely helped get me there. But coming out of high school, didn't get recruited too much. Ended up committing to a Division II school called Augustana. That's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Spent a year and a half there, and I think I ended up transferring to Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, where I ended up graduating. Um, the reason I kind of transferred is I was just super impatient, I think. I was somebody who I believed in myself a lot. I believed, or I constantly heard feedback from other teammates and, some people on the coaching staff, and the fact that I still wasn't getting playing time, it was hard to sit out football for a year when I first redshirted, and then the second year when I could actually play, I was just a special teamer and whatnot, and I had no problem doing that. But I always felt like I had more to give, and I know I was still just a young freshman, probably super naive, but I don't know. I always had this belief that I was supposed to be doing more and whatnot, and ultimately that entire coaching staff ended up getting canned that year, and along with it, I ended up leaving. And instead of going through another recruiting process, I literally just called up one coach. It was a guy that my brother had played for. It was Division III Concordia College. My brother had played from there. There was kind of like a pipeline from my high school for kids to go play there. I went and visited the school. When I visited the school, never took it serious because I told myself, I'm a Division I, Division II athlete. I don't really want to play in the D3. But when it came down to it, I was just so fed up, and I was just like, I just want to play. Like, I just want to play football. And so ended up calling up Coach Horan, and I actually talked to him the other day, so we were laughing about this. But because I left him a similar voicemail, it was just like, hey, Coach, Brandon Zylstra, like, if you still got a spot for me, I want to come play for you. And essentially, long story short, I ended up going there and having a pretty successful career. Nothing crazy, nothing jumped off the stat page. We actually ran a triple option. So if any of the people on here that know anything about football, being a receiver in the triple option is about, in going to a D3 school too, is about as low as you can go on the totem pole, trying to play receiver, trying to make it to the next level. But nothing, like, even putting myself in that situation, never really deterred me from what I still wanted to do. I still had, the NFL in the back of my mind. Again, didn't tell a lot of people at Concordia. It was just something, I kind of kept to myself. I didn't, people talk about the haters and the doubters and stuff, and that's never really fueled me. It's more so like prove yourself right. Like, you go be who you say you are, or who you think you are. And so, like, that was always kind of my motivation. It wasn't necessarily about others. but ultimately ended up graduating Concordia. My quarterback that was there for my, he graduated a year before me because I redshirted, but he was there for my junior, my senior year. Super big kid, super dumb athletic, really competitive. And that's why we got along so well. But while I finished up my senior year, he went off to Germany and played in GFL, German Football League, and he was in GFL too. I believe there's 4 leagues there. He did it just because he didn't know what he wanted to do. He still enjoyed football and he wanted to just go travel because over there I don't want to say it's not real football, but it's very taken way less serious, 2 or 3 practices a week and then a game. But he did it just to, for something to do and to go travel. And he ended up having a lot of success. He ended up being MVP of the league. He ended up winning the championship. And so he called me up. It was after my season, and he was just like, what are your plans? And I was like, I'm going to go chase this NFL dream. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Don't have any contacts. Don't know where I'm training, but this is what I want to do. And he was just like, hey, I'm in the same boat. He's like, I just met a quarterback coach down in Arizona by the name of Rudy Carpenter. He played in the league for a little bit, and now he's just, coaching a lot of high school and college athletes. But he's just like, I got a place down there. I got a place for us to train. He's like, if you're more than welcome to come down here. We'll train together. We'll throw together. We'll lift together. We'll push each other. And, we'll essentially just go figure it out. And I was just like, it's better than my option right now, which is nothing. And so after I graduated, I ended up graduating from Concordia in December, literally threw all my stuff in a car and just drove down to Arizona. 24 and a half hour drive. I made it in 26 hours, only taking time to gas up, stretch every once in a while, eat. Otherwise, I was just trying to teleport there. I didn't want to, well, one, I didn't really have money to go stay in hotels and stuff, but 2, I just wanted to get there as fast as possible. I was excited for what we were doing, excited to start this dream and whatnot. So ended up going down there, ended up training with him from January until April-ish, I believe. While we were down there, like I said, we had no agents. We weren't on anybody's radar. So it was all us just about figuring it out and just, I guess, just trying to network and do whatever we could to try to get, any kind of opportunity. We didn't care what it was. We wanted an opportunity. Part of that journey led us to looking into the CFL. Didn't know anything about the CFL, the Canadian Football League. Didn't know anything about the rules or anything, but knew it was a higher league of higher football league than obviously what we had played in. So ended up going on to all their different websites, looked up where their tryouts are, ended up attending 4 tryouts. And from those 4 tryouts, I actually did pretty well in those. I feel like I stood out. I honestly, and I don't say this braggingly, but I'm saying it, whatever. A lot of their workouts, they do the 40 and all that kind of stuff, but they put a lot of emphasis on one-on-ones. And during those one-on-ones, they kind of try out everybody and they narrow everybody down. They'll pick 5 or 6 guys and then run you through a bunch more. And I can confidently say through all those 4 different workouts that I did for the 4 different teams, I probably lost less than 5 or 6 one-on-ones. I felt like that was what kind of helped me stand out and kind of catch the coach's eye, I guess, because my numbers were, I was always a big kid, 6'3". I think I weighed 218, 220 at the time. So I was a bigger kid that could run decent, 4.5s, low 4.6. But it was the one-on-ones that kind of stood out for me, and ended up getting 3 contract offers from that. But CFL was never my goal. NFL was always my goal. And I told every single CFL coach and every single CFL workout that, that's my plan. And I'll use this as a backup plan essentially, because I wanted to be honest with them. So from there there was a thing at the time. It's not a thing anymore, but it was called like the NFL regional combine, maybe. So I was in Arizona at the time, paid like $250 to attend to go to the Arizona Cardinals facility, They run you through everything that you'd see at a pro day or the NFL combine. So your 40 L drill, all that kind of stuff. Um, then again, you ran routes there, routes on air. Everything was taped. There was only a few actual scouts I remember seeing there, but they said that they would send all this film out to everybody else. Didn't really hear much feedback from that, but because I went to Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, I'm just across the river from the powerhouse in North Dakota State, NDSU. Luckily for me, Carson Wentz was the big thing at the time there, and potentially getting picked first or second. And so just because we were so close, and our the coaches knew each other from Concordia and NDSU, they ended up, I don't know how he did it, but ended up sneaking me in there. So I was able to run with them, and I had hit up Carson a few times, just got his number, through different contacts and whatnot, and tried being a part of his actual pro day workout, being a guy he was throwing to. And I ended up working out with him for like 2 or 3 weeks. I went down to Fargo a few weeks before the pro day. The pro day ended up being on my birthday or the day before my birthday. Went out there like 2 weeks early though, just to meet up with Carson, try to get to know him and try to like showcase to him that, I'm not just another dude. But ultimately he ended up wanting to throw with his NDSU guys, which again, I had no problem. But in there, one of the guys was a guy that played up in the CFL for a few years. So it's kind of fun to talk with him and get his advice a little bit. But ultimately the NDSU workout was decent, and again, nothing crazy. I actually had a few teams come up and actually talk to me then. I think the Vikings, Eagles, and there might have been one other team. Pretty much guys that were just saying, kind of getting who are you, what's your story, why are you here, you look good, you got the body, blah blah blah, we'll keep in touch essentially. So while all this was happening, the Edmonton Eskimos of the CFL, which are now the I'm blanking right now, that's tough. The Edmonton Elks, they've changed their name recently. But while this was happening, they know I was at the NDSU workout, doing all these other things. But again, I'm going through this with no agent, and this was a big learning process for me. But they sent me a contract, and there's like, we want you to play for us. We understand your goal is the NFL. Why don't you sign this? We won't date it. We'll just keep it here in the files. And if you get an NFL opportunity, cool. And if not, this is your backup option. And I was like, this sounds too good to be true. So I bring it to my my football coach at the time at Concordia, and we kind of go through it. And I'm just like, everything looks good, and like, I can't believe they're doing this. That's so cool. And so we ended up, I think it was after a day or two, I ended up signing it, sending it back. We just didn't date it. And so time goes on, the NFL draft goes. Right after the draft, I get a call from the Minnesota Vikings. Hey, we want to bring you in for a mini camp tryout, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, you get 2 or 3 days there to go showcase your skills, and you're essentially just a roster spot so they can run through a practice with all their other rookies. But they do end up signing guys from there. Adam Thielen was one of those guys, who just came in for, a workout essentially, and still in the league because of that. But got super excited. Family and friends went nuts. I got the opportunity I've always wanted. So I think it was like a day or two before the tryout starts, I get another call from the Minnesota Vikings, and they're just like, it seems here that you're under contract of another team. And I was like, no, we had an understanding. They aren't going to put the contract through until in case I got this opportunity, they're no longer valid. They're no longer relevant. They're just like, well, they literally just called us and told us that you're part of their team, so we can't have you in anymore. And I was like, you got to hold off on that. I said, there's some kind of misunderstanding. Let me call them. They're just like, I don't know what to tell you. We can't bring you in. And so I spent the next, well, it ended up being like a day, but I mean, that rest of the day, I remember vividly, just a tough day for Brandon. I called like the GM of my old team. I called the scout that I've been talking to. I called the CFL front office and told them to void the contract. Called a lawyer to see if there's anything I can do, but ultimately there was nothing I could do. They told me that everything was kind of set in stone, like you take it or you don't. And as much as that hurt, I just told myself, like, it's either I give up football in its entirety right now because I'm not going to get another opportunity, or I just, go play up in the CFL and see what comes from it. Ended up going up to the CFL, had a really good training camp. Heard a lot of good reviews again. And cut day comes. I'm sitting in the room with all my friends that, we're all sitting by the phone, and, you get the phone call, Nate goes down. Get a phone call, Bryant goes down, and it's 2 minutes before like the cut deadline, and I'm the only one still in the room, and I was like, I made it, and I didn't get a call yet. I was the very last call they called. Ended up going down. There's like, we want to put you on practice roster. You did everything you could do, but they have a ratio up there where you can only start 7 Americans or whatever it is. And it just so happens to be that the 2 Americans ahead of me in the receiver room, the 2 Americans that were starting were the number 1 and number 3 in the league, both posting up, number 1 and number 3 for yards and whatnot, and both returning all-stars. And so I had some spots in front of me, but talked to them for a while, and I was just like, I don't even know if I want to take this. Like, I was like, everybody here is a D1 athlete. Everybody here got their school paid for. I'm in debt. I'm paying, I think it was at the time like 700 some dollars a month in student loans. Like, I'm not making anything up here for practice roster. I can't afford that. I really have to consider my options here. And they were trying to convince me to sign. And after like going back and forth for a while, I ended up just signing it essentially as like a trial run. I wanted to see how the first couple of weeks went, and ended up sitting. I guess it was good enough for me to stay. I was having enough fun that I ended up sitting on the practice roster for the first 13 of an 18-week season. But I finally got the nod. I think it was either week 13 or 14. And when that came, I knew I had to go make my stamp on the CFL. In my very first play from scrimmage, I caught just a little flat dump off route, and I went and hurdled the kid because I wanted to put my name out there, and just kind of show I could play in that league. And I don't know if it was from there, I ended up having a decent game, but ended up starting the rest of the season. So I played the next, I think, 8 games, including playoffs, finished with like, I think I don't know with playoffs and whatnot, but in the regular season through my last, 5 or 6 games, finished with like 550 yards, 30 some catches, and, a handful of touchdowns. And it was enough to earn Rookie of the Year honors. And then going into that second year into the CFL, they kind of leaned on me to be that guy. So it was cool because the one guy that was ahead of me on our roster ended up going down to the NFL. He ended up getting signed by the Bucks. So I was essentially kind of taking over his spot. And just, it was honestly like, well, I kind of had that, I guess, at Concordia a little bit, but it was the first time in a long time, I guess, that I had a coaching staff's full trust, trying to make me a premier guy. I felt like I was being utilized for the first time correctly, based on my skill set for the first time in my career. And it was a very fulfilling feeling. Something that I'm still super thankful for. I still talk to those coaches that, that gave me that opportunity. I still talk to those coaches periodically, just because that was a super important time in my life. But that second year ended up finishing up. I ended up missing two or 3 games maybe, with a hamstring injury, but still finished up the league. The league leader in yards, receptions, I think I was top 5. But ended up setting a bunch of records up there for like most 100-yard games in a season. which is pretty cool because it's a 105-year league. So the fact that a few of my records are stamped in stone felt pretty good, felt pretty rewarding. But that kind of led me into, actually, this is the first time I've ever had agents hit me up. I had like 5 or 6 different agents hit me up from kind of across the US. Had NFL teams actually interested. Our GM, I remember my GM in the CFL at that point came up to me and said, we've had about 20 or 25 different teams call about you already. So like, there's a real interest, who's your agent and whatnot. And so I had to go through that entire process of, who do I want to represent me now? Who do I trust and whatnot? So like that was a process in itself. Ended up going with Blake Barrett's with IFA, Institute for Athletes. He was ironically the same guy that repped Adam Thielen, which was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, long story short, went and did a couple different workouts, and those workouts were like, compared to the workouts I did after I entered the league, those first workouts coming from down from the CFL, getting wined and dined the way I did was a pretty cool experience. But it ultimately ended up coming down between the Jets and the Vikings, and not that it was a no-brainer, but I ended up going with the Vikings. That was a dream come true for me. It was something, like I said, I had planned for since I was in kindergarten. So what is that, 5th or 6th grade, or 5 or 6 years old? So it was kind of cool to see it all just finally go full circle. I was going to play in front of all my friends and family again, which I haven't been able to do for a while, being up in Canada, and then in Concordia, where there's not a whole lot happening out there. So I didn't have that many friends come visit. Luckily, my family was there for almost every game, but just cool to come back home, play for the hometown team, play for the team I played growing up, and that's pretty much my journey.
It's like the ultimate story of perseverance. It's super cool to hear it, man, because I've my grad school was a D3 and they ran the triple option. And I don't know much about football, but one of the other GAs that was with me had played football, and he did a lot of like the running and everything. And he's like, dude, the wide receivers kind of just block, and like
Yep.
we don't really throw the ball much. And I was like, damn, that's kind of boring. So like when I hear you say like you're a receiver in the triple option, I'm like, how does he get any looks? And it just I think the mindset aspect of it is really cool to hear. And I think the like internal motivation versus like hearing people saying that you're not going to make it versus like just proving to yourself that you really do believe in yourself, and like not having an agent and learning the hard way and just moving to Arizona. Like there's a lot of parallels for any like strength and conditioning coaches that are listening. Just like you set a goal of like, for me, I wanted to get to the big leagues, and it's like I'm living here, I'm living there, I'm working D3, I'm working private facility, I have no idea what I'm doing, I end up making it to the big leagues. Like there's a lot of parallels in your story that I feel relevant to mine. Obviously being a player and making it to the league is way more difficult than as a strength coach, but like really really cool that I'm getting to hear your story now. Obviously, we have a mutual connection that hooked us up, but I hadn't heard your story before. So, really awesome. Kind of along those lines, like, what advice do you have for young players or coaches that work with young players that are maybe looking to make that small town big dream a reality for themselves?
My biggest thing, and I just go based off of my experiences, I guess. One, like, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to, like, for me, like, I just didn't have a lot of direction. So for me, it was just so much of figuring everything out on my own. And being that, I was not afraid to put myself in any kind of situation. I was not afraid to talk to anybody. I guess a story on that is, it's funny because this is why I connected with my coach the other day, is because I found this little email that I used to send out to other people. And so I sent it to him and I was like, bro, you have to look at where I started. But so like when we were in Arizona, we were trying to network as much as possible. Like I said, we were just trying to get our name out there. And so what we ended up doing is we created what we call the athlete resume. So it was, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, I'm working with these type of coaches, I'm out in Arizona, this is blah blah blah. And then attached to that email was our athlete resume, where it had a picture, it had our 40 time L drill, all of our stats and achievements. Our references were our coaches, like former coaches they could talk to. Then also attach like our huddle highlight film to that email, and I would email blast that out every week and a half to. It ended up being, I think it was like 150 or two different emails that we had accumulated over time, of just like talking to people, and they're all NFL like scouts. I think they're mainly scouts, but sent it out every week and a half, 2 weeks, and heard back 3 times ever. Sent out 2,000, 3,000 emails, heard back 3 times ever. So like, but for me, it was just like, if I get one that says he's going to watch me or one that replies to me, it's worth it. So just being able to put yourself in different situations like that, I think a lot, and I attribute a lot of my success to the people I put myself around. I found like-minded individuals in college that are willing to actually work to get stuff, that were really competitive, that were able to push me, essentially keep my head on straight. And luckily enough, when I was in the small town of Spicer, Minnesota, it was the same way. Where my best friend, Jamie Moten, me and him used to scheme and plan and talk about what we're going to do in the future. Fast forward to now, he's my agent in the NFL. He just had, what was it, last year? He had the second pick in the draft, and he had Aiden Hutchinson and Ike Ekwonu. So number 2 and number 5 in the draft, or two and number 6 in the draft, like both doing what we said we were going to do when we were younger, and like just having that backbone of when I see him slipping or I see him getting off track, it's, I'm there to correct him and help push him, and vice versa. Same with me. He's somebody that's always just like, he knows what we've talked about. We've had a lot of deep conversations and whatnot. And so he knows when I'm slipping, he knows when I'm, doing okay and whatnot. And we just kind of have that trust and just the overall drive to just see each other's life be better and do what we kind of said we were going to do. So it's just the ultimate accountability partner. I think that's just super, super, super helpful and important to anybody. Whether, it doesn't matter what kind of job you're in, just to have somebody that is going to keep you on track, but at the same time, you're able to push them, because by pushing them is going to keep you on track as well. But I just think I attribute to so much of my success to the people I've surrounded myself with, and just making sure that they're the right people, essentially.
Yeah, it's super relevant, and like the people that are around you are like, the person that you become. And a lot
100%.
of them are like, if you have, the bigger your dream is, the crazier it seems to other people. Like you almost have to have equally crazy people in your corner that are like, nah, dude, go ahead, do it, you can do it, like you can make it to the league, while everybody else is like, what is this guy talking about? Like those two are crazy over there scheming. Like I have somebody here with the Red Sox that I scheme a lot with, and we talk, programs and this, that, and the other thing, and we've come up through the minor league system together here. And it just made me smile when you talk about, scheming together, and like other people think you're crazy. Like, what are they doing over there? And you're like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. Like, it just made me think of him, and he's really pushed me and really held me accountable. So I can relate to what you're saying, man. It's just the people that you're around are really like who you end up becoming in life for real.
100%. And I've been such a believer in that, and I mean, I've seen it work for me. So I will continue to lean on my people and continue to just, make my circle just a good circle of people. And that, sometimes that means weeding out some. And I just had a conversation about this with somebody recently, and it's like not so much weeding them out, because there's some day one homies that, you'll always be there for, but it's just like changing your energy, changing your focus. So it's like, yeah, you're still a day one homie, but I'm not putting as much energy and emphasis into you anymore. Like I'm still there whenever you call, but like I'm not, essentially, I don't want to say you're not going anywhere, but like, you understand what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm going to put that into somebody else that's, aligned with me right now.
We only have like limited energy. We only have limited time, man. And if you're just wasting it on, sometimes people just not gonna. I think I understand, especially because I come from a small town too. You know what I mean? So it's like when I go back home, there are people doing the same thing that they've always been doing, and it's like, oh, you should move back here. And it's like, no, like I got big dreams that I'm chasing, man. I need to keep doing this. So um, I appreciate your time. I appreciate hearing your story, man. This is really cool to get to know you. And shout out to Bethany for the connection between the two of us. We will definitely talk again soon, but thank you for your time and thank you for sharing your story with me, man.
Absolutely. And as this goes on, if you ever want to have me back on, I would love to come back on. I love doing this kind of stuff. So
For sure, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.